The Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum is indeed a fascinating and haunting piece of history. Its design and architecture reflect the Kirkbride Plan, which emphasized natural light and fresh air for patients, aiming for a more humane treatment approach. However, the drastic increase in patient numbers led to overcrowding and deplorable conditions, contributing to the asylum's notorious reputation. Since its closure, the asylum has become a site for paranormal investigations and ghost tours, with many claiming to experience strange occurrences, such as unexplained noises, apparitions, and a general feeling of unease. The stories of patients who suffered there add a poignant layer to its haunted legacy. In the years following its closure, the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum began to attract attention beyond just its grim past. The sprawling, Gothic-style building, with its towering spires and intricate stonework, stood as a stark reminder of a darker chapter in mental health treatment. As urban explorers and paranormal enthusiasts flocked to the site, whispers of its haunted reputation grew. Local legends spoke of shadowy figures seen flitting through the halls, flickering lights in empty rooms, and the echoing sounds of distant cries and laughter. Many claimed to have encountered the spirits of former patients, trapped in the asylum's confines. Among the most chilling tales was that of a young woman who, according to lore, had been subjected to inhumane treatments. Visitors reported feeling an overwhelming sadness in the area she was said to roam, as if the weight of her suffering still lingered. As interest in the asylum surged, it was not just thrill-seekers who arrived. Ghost hunters and paranormal investigators brought their equipment, hoping to capture evidence of the supernatural. They set up cameras and EMF detectors, prepared to document any anomalies. Some recordings revealed unexplained voices in the dead of night, chilling laughter, or even the sound of footsteps echoing through empty corridors. During one particularly tense investigation, a team of paranormal enthusiasts gathered in the old children's ward, where the energy was said to be especially intense. They began to conduct an EVP session, asking questions into the silence, seeking responses from the unseen. Suddenly, a loud bang reverberated through the room, and the temperature dropped sharply. The group exchanged nervous glances, their hearts racing, as they felt an inexplicable presence surround them. As the night wore on, they continued to capture strange phenomena: a shadow darting past the doorway, an object moving seemingly on its own, and whispers that seemed to come from the walls themselves. Each encounter added to the growing legend of the asylum, fueling its reputation as one of the most haunted places in America. Despite the spine-chilling tales, some visitors approached the asylum with a sense of reverence. They understood the asylum's tragic history and the suffering endured within its walls. Each ghostly encounter, they believed, was not just a haunting but a testament to the lives lost and the stories untold. As renovations and restorations began, efforts were made to honor the memory of those who had lived and died there. Guided tours incorporated historical accounts alongside ghost stories, educating visitors about the realities of mental health treatment in the 19th and 20th centuries. Yet, as the renovations progressed, some feared that the spirits of the asylum would be disturbed, their stories silenced forever. But the question remained: were the souls truly at rest, or were they still bound to the asylum, waiting for someone to acknowledge their pain? The chilling stories continued to unfold, keeping the legend of the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum alive, drawing in those curious about its history and the mysteries that lay within its decaying walls. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you liked this story. As the renovations continued, a group of dedicated historians and paranormal enthusiasts decided to delve deeper into the asylum's past. They organized a series of research nights, inviting community members to sift through archives, letters, and old patient records stored away in the asylum's basement. Dust motes danced in the air as they combed through yellowing documents, piecing together the lives of those who had once called the asylum home. One evening, while examining a particularly old ledger, a volunteer named Sarah stumbled upon a series of patient accounts that detailed harrowing experiences. Each entry was filled with the same words: lost, forgotten, and alone. As she read through the entries, a sense of unease washed over her. The emotions conveyed in the words felt palpable, as if the very essence of the patient's struggles echoed through the ages. Driven by a need to honor these lost souls, Sarah proposed a project to create a memorial within the asylum's grounds, a place for visitors to reflect on the lives affected by the institution. The idea gained traction, and soon the community rallied around her vision, contributing to fundraisers and organizing events to raise awareness about mental health issues, both past and present. However, the deeper they dug into the asylum's history, the more unsettling discoveries they made. They found records of experimental treatments and accounts of overcrowding that were far worse than they had imagined. The tales of patients kept in cages were not just rumors. They were documented in reports that revealed a systematic failure to care for those who sought help. On a particularly stormy night, as the group gathered to discuss their findings, the atmosphere turned heavy with tension. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows, and a sudden power outage plunged the room into darkness. Panic swept through the group, but Sarah quickly lit a candle, casting flickering shadows that danced eerily on the walls. As they resumed their discussion, the candlelight illuminated a framed photograph on the wall, a haunting image of a young girl, eyes wide and filled with sorrow. No one recognized her, but the photograph seemed to radiate an intense energy. Just then, one of the participants, a skeptic named Mike, jokingly suggested they try to communicate with the spirit of the girl. With a mix of apprehension and curiosity, the group formed a circle around the candle. They began to call out to her, asking her name and what she wanted. To their astonishment, as they spoke, a chill swept through the room, and the candle flickered violently, as if responding to their words. Suddenly, a soft voice echoed in the air, almost drowned out by the wind outside. "Help me!" The words sent shivers down their spines, and the candlelight seemed to dim, casting an ominous shadow on the photograph of the girl. Sarah's heart raced as she instinctively reached out toward the photograph, feeling a strange connection. "What do you need?" she whispered, half in disbelief, half in desperation to understand the message. In that moment, the atmosphere shifted, and an overwhelming sense of sorrow enveloped them. The candle flickered one last time before the lights came back on, revealing shocked faces and wide eyes. Mike, who had been the most skeptical, now sat in stunned silence, realizing that something otherworldly had occurred. The group, shaken but resolute, decided they could no longer treat the asylum merely as a haunted location. They had unearthed the soul of the place, the spirits of those who had suffered and endured. Their mission now shifted from mere exploration to genuine advocacy. They sought to give a voice to the voiceless, to tell the stories that had long been buried under layers of shame and neglect. As they continued their work, strange occurrences began to follow them. Members of the group reported hearing whispers during late-night meetings, feeling cold spots in rooms where they had previously felt at ease, and experiencing vivid dreams of the asylum's past. Each of these phenomena seemed to drive them forward, urging them to continue their mission of remembrance. One night, as they gathered to finalize plans for the memorial, Sarah had a vivid dream. In it, the girl from the photograph stood before her, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and desperation. "Finish what you started," she whispered, reaching out with a small, ghostly hand. When Sarah woke, she knew they had to move forward with their plans, and that they had been given a purpose far greater than they had anticipated. The group launched into action, organizing events to educate the community about mental health history, the importance of humane treatment, and the need for compassion toward those who suffer. With each step forward, they felt the energy around the asylum change, a shift from a place of despair to one of healing and remembrance. But just as they began to see the fruits of their labor, unexpected challenges arose. Detractors questioned the intentions of the group, calling them exploitative for profiting off the asylum's dark past. Others tried to stop the memorial's construction, claiming it would disrupt the spirit's rest. As tensions mounted, Sarah and the group found themselves at a crossroads. They had opened a dialogue with the past, but could they truly reconcile it with the present? Would they be able to honor the lost souls without further disturbing their peace? The answers seemed just out of reach, and as they pressed on, the line between the living and the dead began to blur, leading them down a path they had never anticipated. As the debates over the memorial intensified, the group felt a mounting pressure from both sides, those eager to see the past acknowledged and those adamantly opposed to the idea. The whispers of the asylum grew louder, echoing their frustrations and hopes alike, pulling them deeper into the tangled history of the building. To bolster their efforts, Sarah organized a public meeting, inviting historians, mental health advocates, and even local skeptics to voice their opinions. The event drew a sizable crowd, and the energy in the room was palpable, a mix of excitement and tension. As she stood at the front, nervously clutching her notes, Sarah felt a strange sense of calm wash over her, as if the spirits of the asylum were standing beside her, urging her on. During the meeting, a well-respected historian named Dr. Collins spoke passionately about the importance of remembering the past. This asylum is more than just a building. It's a testament to a time when mental health treatment was shrouded in ignorance and fear, he said. We owe it to those who suffered here to acknowledge their experiences and honor their memories. As he spoke, the crowd began to nod in agreement, but the skeptics were quick to counter. A prominent figure in the community, known for her vocal opposition to the group's efforts, stood up. We cannot turn this place into a spectacle, she argued. What happened here is tragic, but memorializing it will only serve to glorify suffering. We need to focus on the future, not dwell in the past. The room erupted into heated discussions, voices rising in passionate arguments on both sides. Sarah felt her heart race as she realized how divided the community truly was. It wasn't just about a memorial. It was about how to confront a painful history and what it meant for their collective future. Amidst the chaos, a soft voice broke through the clamor. Let them speak, an elderly man called from the back of the room. His voice, steady and calm, silenced the crowd, and all eyes turned to him. He rose slowly, leaning on a cane, his presence commanding respect. I was a patient here many years ago, he began, his voice shaking but resolute. I remember the fear, the loneliness. I watched as friends came and went, some never to return. To forget this place would be a disservice to all who suffered within these walls. We must honor them. The room fell silent, the weight of his words hanging in the air. Sarah felt tears well up in her eyes as the audience processed the impact of his testimony. This was the voice they needed, an authentic narrative from someone who had lived through the very experience they were discussing. After the meeting, Sarah approached the elderly man, introducing herself and expressing her gratitude for his courage. He introduced himself as Mr. Thompson and shared that he had spent years advocating for mental health awareness, believing deeply that the past should inform the present. Together, they brainstormed ways to strengthen the community's understanding of the asylum's history. With Mr. Thompson's insights, they decided to organize an event that would honor the patients while educating the public about mental health issues, transforming the asylum from a site of horror into a place of healing and reflection. As the planning began, Sarah and her team focused on creating a narrative that intertwined the past with present struggles. They invited local schools to participate, encouraging students to research and present on mental health history, using the asylum as a focal point. Workshops on compassion and understanding for mental health challenges were also included, hoping to foster a more supportive community environment. Meanwhile, strange occurrences within the asylum continued. During late-night planning sessions, members of the group reported doors creaking open on their own and soft murmurs echoing through the halls. Sarah found it increasingly difficult to distinguish between the energies of the living and the spirits who had once called this place home. One night, as they wrapped up a particularly late meeting, Sarah noticed a glimmer of light at the end of the corridor, faint but inviting. Curiosity piqued. She followed the light, the familiar feeling of being drawn by unseen hands guiding her steps. As she approached, she found herself in front of the same photograph of the young girl, but now it glowed with an ethereal light. Entranced, Sarah reached out to touch the frame. In that moment, a rush of emotion flooded her. Fear, sadness, hope, and longing intertwined within her heart. You're not forgotten, she whispered, feeling a connection surge between them. In response, the light pulsed gently, illuminating the dark corners of the room. It was as if the girl was acknowledging her, urging her to continue the fight for recognition and healing. Filled with a sense of purpose, Sarah returned to the group, ready to share her experience. "Something is happening here," she declared, gathering everyone's attention. "We're not just fighting for a memorial. We're creating a living testament to those who suffered here, a place of healing for both the past and present." As the community event approached, excitement and anxiety buzzed in the air. The group worked tirelessly to ensure everything was in place. But beneath the surface, the tension remained. Skeptics still voiced their concerns, and the looming threat of opposition from the local community added pressure. On the day of the event, the sun shone brightly, and a gentle breeze swept through the asylum grounds, bringing with it a sense of renewal. Families arrived, children in tow, curious about the stories that had once been hidden behind the asylum's imposing walls. Sarah felt a mixture of hope and apprehension as she welcomed the crowd, knowing that the weight of history rested on their shoulders. As the event commenced, the air was thick with anticipation. Speakers shared personal stories, local artists displayed their work inspired by the asylum, and the haunting echoes of the past began to transform into a chorus of understanding. Yet, in the back of her mind, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper was at play, that the spirits of the asylum were watching, waiting for their story to be told. Just as she took the stage to share her vision, the lights flickered ominously, and a hush fell over the crowd. A sudden chill swept through the air, and Sarah felt a familiar presence beside her. The moment hung in the balance, teetering between the living and the lost, as she prepared to give voice to the voiceless, unaware that the asylum had one more twist in its storied legacy yet to reveal. As Sarah stood before the crowd, the flickering lights cast an eerie glow across the gathering. The unexpected chill sent a shiver down her spine, but she took a deep breath, centering herself amid the tension. She could feel the weight of the asylum's history pressing upon her. But this was her moment to honor those who had suffered and to advocate for a future of understanding and compassion. "Thank you all for being here today," she began, her voice steady despite the unease around her. "Today, we come together not just to remember the past, but to create a bridge to the future. The stories of those who suffered in this asylum must be told not just for their sake, but for all those who continue to face similar struggles today." As she spoke, a soft murmur began to ripple through the crowd, and she could feel the spirits around her, their energy palpable and supportive. Inspired by their presence, she continued, weaving tales of resilience and despair, of lives once lost but now reborn in memory. Each story seemed to resonate with the audience, and Sarah could see the change in their faces, a dawning realization that these were not just ghost stories, but echoes of real human experiences. In the midst of her speech, the lights flickered again, this time brighter, illuminating the faces of those gathered. Sarah paused, sensing a shift in the atmosphere. The crowd hushed, collectively holding their breath, as if they too felt the spirits urging them forward. Just then, a gust of wind swept through the outdoor space, rustling the trees and sending a chill through the air. People instinctively huddled closer together, their eyes wide with anticipation. Sarah felt a surge of determination. This was more than just a gathering, it was a turning point. As she concluded her speech, she invited Mr. Thompson to join her on stage. The elderly man stepped forward, a twinkle in his eye. "It's time we honor those who came before us," he said, his voice strong. "Let us build a memorial not just in stone, but in our hearts. Let us promise to remember their stories and advocate for those still suffering in silence." Together, they unveiled a beautiful wooden plaque that bore the names of patients from the asylum, surrounded by flowers donated by community members. The crowd erupted into applause, a wave of emotion washing over them as they connected with the shared history. But then, the ground beneath them trembled, a low rumble echoing from the depths of the asylum. Gasps filled the air, and the crowd instinctively drew closer, a mix of fear and fascination etched on their faces. Was this the spirits reacting to their tribute or something more sinister? As the vibrations subsided, a voice emerged from the crowd, a young girl, no more than 10, who had been listening intently. "I saw her," she said, pointing towards the asylum. "The girl in the picture. She smiled at me, A ripple of astonishment passed through the audience. The girl's innocent proclamation seemed to unlock something within them, an understanding that the spirits were not just trapped. They were watching, waiting for their stories to be told. At that moment, Sarah realized that the ghosts of the asylum were not just remnants of a troubled past but active participants in their present. Their presence was a reminder of the importance of empathy and connection, bridging the gap between the living and the lost. With renewed energy, the group decided to establish an ongoing program to honor the asylum's history and support mental health initiatives. They created workshops, storytelling sessions, and art installations, inviting the community to engage in conversations about mental health, breaking down stigma, and fostering understanding. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the asylum, the crowd gathered around the plaque, sharing their thoughts and stories. Laughter mingled with tears as they honored both the past and the promise of a better future. In the days that followed, word of the event spread throughout Weston, drawing more visitors to the asylum not just for its ghostly tales, but for its commitment to healing. Sarah and her team worked tirelessly to ensure that the memory of those who suffered there was never forgotten. They partnered with local schools, mental health organizations, and historians, weaving the asylum's legacy into the fabric of the community. One night, as Sarah walked through the halls of the asylum after a successful community event, she felt a familiar chill. The air buzzed with energy, and she could sense the spirits surrounding her. She paused in front of the photograph of the young girl, now framed and adorned with flowers. "Thank you," Sarah whispered, feeling a deep connection. "We're honoring you and all the others. You're not forgotten." In that moment, the candle flickered to life beside her, illuminating the room in a warm glow. She understood that the spirits were finally at peace, having been acknowledged and remembered. The connection between the past and present had transformed the asylum from a place of despair into a beacon of hope and healing. As she left the asylum that night, Sarah felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The battle for recognition had been won, not just for the spirits but for all those who still fought their own silent battles. And as the moon rose high above the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, it cast a gentle light on the building, a symbol of the stories shared and the lives touched, a haunting legacy transformed into a message of resilience, compassion, and connection. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you liked this story.